Vincent Russo believed in old ways. He ran his auto repair shop like his grandfather had taught him, cash only, handshake deals, and an unspoken understanding about who belonged in his neighborhood. The faded Italian flag hung next to a collection of vintage Mustang posters, and the coffee pot in the corner had been brewing the same bitter blend for 15 years. Then one Tuesday morning, a Latina woman in a crisp uniform walked through his bay doors carrying a clipboard and wearing the kind of quiet authority that made his jaw clench. Carmen Valdez had inspected hundreds of businesses across Phoenix. She'd seen every excuse, every deflection, every attempt to charm or intimidate her out of doing her job. As a fire safety inspector, she understood that people's lives depended on proper ventilation, clear exits, and functioning sprinkler systems. She also understood that some business owners saw her badge as a suggestion rather than an order. Vincent wiped his greasy hands on a rag as she approached, eyeing the official seal on her jacket with suspicion. "We're closed for maintenance," he called out, not bothering to look up from the engine block he was pretending to examine. "Mr. Russo?" Carmen's voice carried the practiced patience of someone who'd heard every variation of avoidance. "I'm Inspector Valdez with Phoenix Fire Prevention. You missed your scheduled safety inspection last month. This is a mandatory follow-up." Vincent straightened slowly, taking in her appearance with the kind of deliberate assessment meant to make someone uncomfortable. "Yeah, well, I don't remember scheduling nothing. Must have been a mistake." Carmen consulted her tablet. The notice was sent certified mail on August 15th. "You signed for it." She showed him the screen with his scrawled signature clearly visible. "Look, lady," Vincent stepped closer, using his height to create pressure. "I don't know what kind of operation you think I'm running here, but this is a legitimate business. Been in my family for 30 years. We don't need some bureaucrat coming in here making problems where there ain't any." The morning sun slanted through the garage doors, illuminating dust motes and the tension building between them. Carmen had seen this dance before, the territorial posturing, the appeals to tradition, the assumption that her authority was somehow negotiable. "This isn't about legitimacy, Mr. Russo. It's about safety compliance. I need to check your electrical systems, emergency exits, and fire suppression equipment." Vincent laughed, but there was no warmth in it. "Fire suppression? Honey, I got a garden hose and 40 years of experience. That's all the suppression I need." He gestured around the cluttered garage, where stacks of old tires blocked what appeared to be a rear exit. "Besides, I know who you people really work for. This ain't about fires. This is about quotas." Carmen felt the familiar weight of assumptions settling around her. The way his eyes lingered on her name badge, the slight emphasis on "you people," the dismissive tone that suggested he'd already decided what kind of person she was. "Mr. Russo, I'm required by law to conduct this inspection. You can cooperate now, or I can return with a court order. Either way, this facility will be inspected." "Court order?" Vincent's voice rose, drawing the attention of two mechanics working in the adjacent bay. "You threatening me in my own shop? This is America, sweetheart. I got rights." Carmen remained calm, though she noted how the other workers had stopped what they were doing to watch. "You have the right to request the presence of your attorney during the inspection. You don't have the right to refuse a lawful safety inspection." Vincent stepped even closer, close enough that she could smell the motor oil and stale coffee on his breath. "I think you got the wrong idea about how things work around here. This neighborhood, we take care of our own problems. We don't need outsiders telling us how to run our businesses." "Outsiders?" Carmen's eyebrow lifted slightly. "You know what I mean," Vincent said, his voice dropping to a growl. "People who show up with their clipboards and their college degrees, thinking they know better than folks who've been working with their hands their whole lives. Thinking they can just walk in anywhere and start making demands." Carmen took a step back, not from fear, but to give herself room to think. She'd been in situations like this before, but something about Vincent's escalating hostility felt different. More personal. More dangerous. "Mr. Russo, I'm going to ask you one more time to allow me to conduct this inspection. If you refuse, I'll file a report with the city, and you'll be facing fines and possible closure." Vincent's face flushed red. "Closure? You think you can shut me down? This place is my life, lady. My grandfather started here when this was still desert. My father built half these buildings with his bare hands. And now you," he caught himself, but the words hung in the air between them. "Now I what, Mr. Russo?" Vincent turned away, muttering something under his breath that sounded like Spanish words spoken with deliberate mockery. When he turned back, his expression had hardened into something uglier. "I want you off my property. Right now. And don't come back without a real inspector." Carmen pulled out her phone and began typing notes. "I'll need to document this refusal for my report." "Document this," Vincent snatched the phone from her hands, his fingers closing around it with enough force to make the case creak. I'm tired of people like you thinking you can just waltz in here and start making demands. This is my shop. These are my rules. The garage fell silent except for the distant hum of traffic on the street outside. Carmen's voice remained steady, but there was steel underneath now. Mr. Russo, you need to return my phone and step back. What you're doing right now is obstruction of a public official and theft of government property. Vincent looked down at the phone in his hand as if surprised to find it there. For a moment, something flickered behind his eyes, doubt, maybe even shame. But it passed quickly, replaced by the same stubborn defiance. Government property, he sneered. Everything's government property to you people, ain't it? Well, not here. Not in my shop. He slammed the phone down on a nearby workbench, the sound echoing through the space like a gunshot. Carmen retrieved her phone, checking for damage while keeping her eyes on Vincent. This inspection is over for today. You'll be hearing from the city attorney's office. As she walked toward her vehicle, Vincent called after her. Good. Maybe they'll send someone who speaks English next time. Carmen didn't turn around. She got into her city-issued sedan, started the engine, and drove away without looking back. But she could feel Vincent watching her from the garage doorway, arms crossed, convinced he'd won something important. 3 days later, the court order arrived. Vincent stared at the official document in his hands, reading the same paragraph over and over. Pursuant to Phoenix Municipal Code 27-143, the undersigned is hereby authorized to enter the premises known as Russo's Auto Repair for the purpose of conducting a mandatory fire safety inspection. His lawyer, Mike Torino, sat across from him in the cramped office above the garage, shaking his head slowly. Vinny, I told you not to escalate this. These inspectors, they got teeth. Real teeth. She grabbed my phone, Mike. She was trying to intimidate me. According to the report, you grabbed her phone. And there were witnesses. Vincent slammed the papers down on his desk, sending a coffee mug clattering to the floor. Witnesses? You mean Tony and Marco? They work for me. They'll say whatever I tell them to say. Mike closed his briefcase with a sharp click. That's perjury, Vinny. And in case you haven't noticed, everybody's got cameras these days. You want to bet your business on whether someone was recording? The truth was, Vincent hadn't been sleeping well since the encounter. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Carmen's face, calm, professional, unafraid. It gnawed him, the way she'd stood her ground, the way she'd made him feel small without raising her voice. When Carmen returned the next morning with the court order and 2 additional inspectors, Vincent was waiting in the parking lot. He'd spent the night moving boxes, trying to clear the blocked exits, telling himself he was just being practical. But when he saw her step out of the official vehicle, all of his careful preparation evaporated into rage. You had to bring backup, he called out, loud enough for the morning commuters at the gas station next door to hear. What's the matter, sweetheart? Afraid to face me one-on-one? Carmen approached with the same measured pace as before, the court order visible in her hands. Mr. Russo, as of this morning, your business is under mandatory inspection. This document grants us access regardless of your cooperation. Vincent looked at the paper she offered, then knocked it from her hands. I don't care what that says. This is harassment, pure and simple. You picked the wrong business to mess with. The 2 backup inspectors, both men in their 40s, moved to flank Carmen. One of them, Inspector Rodriguez, spoke up. Sir, interfering with this inspection is a criminal offense. We need you to step aside. Criminal offense? Vincent's voice cracked with disbelief. I'm the criminal? She's the one who came in here making threats, acting like she owns the place. This is my property. Carmen tried to step around him toward the garage entrance, but Vincent moved to block her path. I said no. No. How many languages you want me to say it in? The confrontation might have stayed verbal if not for the moment when Carmen tried to document the obstruction with her phone. Vincent saw the device come up, saw the camera pointing in his direction, and something snapped. Put that away. He lunged forward, grabbing for the phone. Carmen turned to protect the device, and Vincent's momentum carried him into her, sending both of them stumbling toward the concrete wall of the garage. Rodriguez and the 3rd inspector, a woman named Kelly Santos, immediately moved to separate them. Rodriguez caught Vincent by the shoulders while Santos helped steady Carmen. That's it, Rodriguez said firmly. You're under arrest for assault on a public official. Vincent struggled against Rodriguez's grip. Assault? I didn't assault nobody. She was filming me without permission. She was documenting your obstruction of a lawful inspection, Santos replied, pulling out her own phone to call for police backup. Which is her job. As they waited for the patrol cars to arrive, Vincent continued to protest his innocence to anyone who would listen. A small crowd had gathered from the surrounding businesses, the owner of the coffee shop, a few customers from the auto parts store, teenagers on their way to school. "This is what they do," Vincent announced to his impromptu audience. "They send these people into our neighborhoods to harass honest working folks. They're trying to shut down every small business in the city so their corporate friends can move in." But the crowd wasn't as sympathetic as Vincent had expected. The coffee shop owner, Mrs. Chen, shook her head and walked back inside. One of the teenagers was recording the whole scene on his phone, and Vincent could see in the kid's expression that the story wasn't playing the way he'd intended. When Officer Martinez arrived and began reading Vincent his rights, the reality of the situation finally began to sink in. This wasn't going to be something he could talk his way out of. This wasn't going to disappear if he just stood his ground long enough. "This ain't right," he muttered as the handcuffs clicked into place. "I built this place from nothing. I employ 6 people. I pay my taxes. And they're treating me like some kind of criminal." Carmen watched from beside her vehicle as Vincent was loaded into the patrol car. She felt no satisfaction, no sense of victory. Just the hollow certainty that this encounter would ripple outward in ways none of them could control. The story hit social media within hours. The teenager's phone footage showed Vincent grabbing Carmen's device, showed him stumbling into her, showed him ranting about these people as he was led away in handcuffs. The context, a business owner refusing a safety inspection, made the optics even worse. By evening, the clip had been shared thousands of times. Local news picked it up by the 10 o'clock broadcast. The comments section became a battleground between people defending Vincent as a hardworking business owner pushed too far and others who saw the encounter as another example of discrimination against Latino public officials. Vincent's bail hearing was set for the following Monday. Over the weekend, someone spray-painted racist across the side of his garage. Someone else left a bouquet of flowers on Carmen's doorstep with a note thanking her for her service. Vincent spent the weekend in his apartment above the shop, watching the footage play over and over on different news channels, seeing his words twisted and analyzed by people who'd never met him. He told himself they were taking everything out of context, that the media was making him look worse than he was. But late Sunday night, alone with a bottle of beer and the weight of everything he was about to lose, Vincent finally watched the footage without the sound. Just the images. His face twisted with rage. Carmen's calm professionalism. The moment when he knocked the court order from her hands. The lunge toward her phone. For the first time, he saw what everyone else saw. And he understood that his version of events, the version where he was the victim, wasn't going to save him. The courtroom was packed on Monday morning. Carmen sat with her attorney, District Attorney Lisa Park, a sharp woman in her 30s who'd built her reputation prosecuting cases of official misconduct and public corruption. Vincent's lawyer, Mike Torino, looked tired and defeated before the proceedings even began. Judge Sarah Williams, a veteran of the bench who'd seen every variation of civic dispute Phoenix had to offer, reviewed the case file with the methodical attention she brought to all her hearings. She'd watched the footage, read the incident reports, and listened to the 911 calls from concerned witnesses. "Mr. Russo," she began, "you're charged with obstruction of a public official, assault on a government employee, and interference with a mandatory safety inspection. How do you plead?" Vincent looked around the packed courtroom, at the reporters, at the faces of people he didn't recognize, at Carmen sitting quietly at the prosecutor's table. Mike Torino whispered something in his ear, but Vincent wasn't listening. "Your Honor," Vincent stood up slowly. I plead guilty." The admission sent a murmur through the courtroom. Mike grabbed Vincent's sleeve, trying to pull him back down, but Vincent shook him off. "I messed up," Vincent continued, his voice barely audible. "I was scared they were going to shut me down, and I took it out on Inspector Valdez. She was just doing her job." Judge Williams studied Vincent for a long moment. "Mr. Russo, are you making this plea of your own free will, understanding the potential consequences?" Vincent nodded. "Yes, Your Honor. I'm tired of fighting. I just want to make it right." The sentencing was swift. 6 months suspended sentence, mandatory anger management counseling, a $5,000 fine, and permanent revocation of his business license. The garage would be sold to pay his legal fees and the city's costs. Outside the courthouse, Vincent found himself face to face with Carmen for the first time since the arrest. She was walking to her car when she noticed him sitting on the steps, head in his hands. "Inspector Valdez," he called out, scrambling to his feet. Can I talk to you for a minute?" Carmen stopped, but kept her distance. "Mr. Russo. I wanted to apologize. For what I said. For what I did. You were right, you were just doing your job, and I made it personal when it shouldn't have been." Carmen studied his face, looking for signs of manipulation or hidden anger. But she saw only exhaustion and what appeared to be genuine remorse. "I appreciate that," she said finally. "But apologies don't undo the damage. Other inspectors are going to face situations like this because people think they can intimidate us. Your business wasn't the only thing at stake. Vincent nodded. I know. And I'm sorry for that too. For making your job harder. For making you feel. He struggled for the words. For treating you like you didn't belong there. Carmen got into her car but rolled down the window. Mr. Russo? Next time you see someone doing their job, any job, maybe remember that they're just trying to serve their community. Just like you thought you were. 6 months later, Carmen drove past the old Russo's auto repair on her way to another inspection. The building had been transformed into a community center, with bright murals covering the walls where Vincent's vintage car posters used to hang. A sign out front advertised free job training programs in English and Spanish. It heard through the departmental grapevine that Vincent had completed his anger management program and was working as a mechanic for someone else across town. No more business license, but steady work. A chance to start over. Carmen pulled into the parking lot and sat for a moment, thinking about all the encounters that had led to this transformation. How many business owners had she met who were struggling, scared, defensive? How many had channeled their fear into hostility instead of cooperation? Vincent's story had become a cautionary tale in her training seminars for new inspectors. Not just about the dangers they might face, but about the human complexity behind every confrontation. People who lashed out weren't always evil, sometimes they were just afraid of losing everything they'd worked for, but fear didn't excuse discrimination. Fear didn't justify treating public servants as enemies. And in the end, Vincent had learned what Carmen had always known, that respect was earned through professionalism, not demanded through intimidation. She started her engine and drove toward her next inspection, carrying with her the quiet satisfaction that came from doing difficult work well, and the hope that maybe, one confrontation at a time, things could get a little better.